The Wednesday Warmup.
Welcome back to the Wednesday Warmup. I'm your host, Danielle Dubois, alongside my co-host, Millan Jane. Now, Millan, we are going into week 15 of this NFL season, almost time for playoffs, so we are getting into some pretty big games. But first, we want to go over one of our week 14 games, and we have chosen the Ravens-Browns game to go over. Millan, let me know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, this game, because the Ravens and Browns is an NFC North battle, and this game was huge, and not just for, the Ravens and the Browns. It was huge for the Steelers. It was huge for the Patriots. It was huge for many different teams who are in that contention for a wild card seed of the division. And I think as a Pittsburgh community, we're a little locked because we don't want to see the Ravens in the playoffs. We also don't want the Browns to, come closer to us because they're now, since the Steelers lost last week, they're just like, hey, we can actually try to win this division. And so this was a big game. And now that the Browns lost, obviously we just need one more game to win. But this showed, we wanted to see what the Browns were. They somehow destroyed the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. And now we're just like, okay, they're 10-3 or 9-3, whatever. Who are they? Are they actually good? And a great test that Lamar Jackson came to town. It was beautiful to see. Okay, let's see how good you really are. Lamar Jackson's coming back. The Ravens have been, throttled by injury, and they're finally coming back from COVID and injuries and all that type of stuff. And it was a well-fought game. Both teams equally deserved to win. Baker showed that he can play. And so I think the Browns are a real threat. That's the first thing that came out of my mind. Is the Browns are going to be a real threat, not just to Kansas City, but in the playoffs. And so this is going to be a team where Pittsburgh, hey, week 17, that's not going to be – we play the Browns week 17. That's not going to be an easy game, especially if you bench those starters, which I think the Steelers could start doing. And then on the flip side with the Ravens, you won that game. You're in the fight for the playoff spot, and I think you could definitely get it. I think that's a good way to come back and, try to win that, win more games and try to get into the playoffs. So it was a huge game. Both teams played very, very well back and forth, probably the game of the year.
I would say it was the game of the year. It was very close, came down to the very last few seconds of the game, which I didn't expect it to be that high scoring. I expected it to be a pretty low scoring game. I'd say 21 to 14 or something low, but not in the 40s for both teams. And I think both teams have a pretty good defense, but I think it was more of an offensive game, as we clearly saw. And both teams' defenses were good, but just not good enough for that elite kind of offense. So it was really just an offensive game of who's going to put up more points, like we saw. Going into week 15, we are starting this off with our Thursday night game, which is the 4-9 Chargers take on the 7-6 Raiders. Now, the Raiders have been pretty inconsistent. We've seen this year. They have a 7-6 record, which is pretty decent. I'm still going to give it to the Raiders, though. The Chargers looked really good last week, and Justin Herbert is a really great quarterback. Obviously, they just beat the Falcons, which, isn't really hard to do. But at the same time, I kind of thought the Falcons were going to win because they have more offensive weapons than the Chargers do. But Justin Herbert's still trying to get into the NFL groove. He is a really great quarterback, just not surrounded by a lot of weapons. And the Raiders just have Derek Carr, who's been doing amazing lately. And I think they have a better chance of winning this game than the Chargers do.
Yeah, I think the Raiders are in the same boat as New England and as Baltimore. They're going to have to win out. This is going to be a tight playoff race. You got the Browns, you got the Patriots, you got the Ravens, you got the Dolphins, you got the Raiders. All these teams are trying to fit 3 playoff spots. It'd be tougher if it was 2, but luckily it's 3 now. And, I think they're going to pull it off, and they're going to go into playoff type mode. Derek Carr has been looking a lot better than he has been the past couple of seasons. Josh Jacobs looks really good. The defense is looking good for the most part. Obviously, like you said, they're inconsistently. But I like what this Raiders team is going to be doing in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to give them the win.
This week we have some Saturday games, which is completely new for us. The first Saturday game is at 4:30. The 10-3 Bills take on the 5-8 Broncos. Now, as we've kind of talked about in some past episodes, the Bills are a really great team, and honestly, they're a threat. They are going to be dirty come playoff times because they already are super great. So imagine just kicking that into playoff gear for an even bigger goal. And I think that's just going to take them, and they are just going to be so dirty in the playoffs. I don't even want to see them play, honestly. But that being said, I honestly don't think the Broncos really have a chance. We haven't seen a lot of great things from them. They've been very inconsistent, especially with the 5-8 record, and their quarterbacks all going down with COVID a few weeks back. That kind of messed things up. So they're still trying to get in their groove here, where the Bills, they have it all figured out. They know what they're doing on defense. They have a great offense. Josh Allen is a great quarterback. I'd say potentially MVP, depending on how well they do in the playoffs. But I'm going to give it to the Bills.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Broncos looked amazing last weekend against the Panthers, but nonetheless, you're playing a potential MVP candidate, and you also are playing against, in my opinion, one of the number one wide receiver in the NFL, arguably, in Stephon Diggs, and the big question was, this is going to be the big test of the Bills against the Steelers, against a defensive team, elite defense like the Steelers. And not going to be honest, going to be very honest with you, did not look good in the first quarter. The Steelers got to him, put pressure on him, did exactly what you needed to do to beat the Bills. Josh Allen was like, okay, we're going to make the adjustments. Steelers could not make the adjustment in the second half, and Josh Allen looked like himself, And so if you can beat a Pittsburgh defense like that, there's not really much stopping you. And so obviously the Bills did play the Chiefs, but that was early in the year. I'm excited to see what would happen if they play again. I think the Browns and the possibly the Bills here could potentially challenge the Chiefs for that top AFC spot. And so I'm interested to see that. But I like what the Bills are doing, and I think they're absolutely going to torch a hurting, struggling secondary in the Denver Broncos.
And yeah, like you were saying with the Bills, how they can make adjustments. I think them and Kansas City are the two best teams that can make adjustments on the fly immediately. They notice something's not working about 2 plays in. They're like, yeah, no, we're going to scrap it. Where most teams, I think their mistakes are is they just keep trying it. They're like, oh, well, maybe we'll just adjust it a little bit. We're just going to keep doing the same kind of play, which obviously that's not going to work. The defense knows what you're doing. Like you're not smart enough to stop them. But the Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, they know what they're doing there.
Mm-hmm.
The next Saturday game is the 4-9 Panthers take on the 10-3 Packers. Now, the Packers are a great team this year. They have so many offensive weapons. Devontae Adams is an amazing wide receiver. That being said, they're going against the Panthers, who are doing pretty average this season. I don't think they hold any threat to the Packers, though, because the Packers are just a different kind of team. You don't want to play against the Packers, honestly. They've started to look pretty dirty going into playoff time, and Aaron Rodgers is just an amazing quarterback, and so I think he's going to dominate this game pretty much, I think.
Yeah, like I said, this is probably the same thing as the Bills game. They're struggling to secondary in the Carolina Panthers. And you have, Aaron Rodgers, who's looking like an MVP candidate. You got Devontae Adams also looking very, very good. This Packers team wants to try to possibly challenge the Saints to get that number 1 seed. They won the North last weekend, and I think they're not going to stop there. I'm giving the Packers the win on this one.
Moving on to Sunday games, our first 1 o'clock game is the 5-8 49ers take on the 4-9 Cowboys. This is not going to be an entertaining game. Both teams are really bad. Honestly, as much as I want to see the 49ers win this one because I hate the Cowboys, I think the Cowboys are going to win it. They just won a game this past week by a lot. I think the score was like 30 to something else. It was a complete crush of the other team. But the Cowboys I think they're going to keep up on that winning streak, and I think they're going to try to come after 49ers. The 49ers are obviously hurting. We've seen them really suffer this year, especially with Bosa and Garoppolo being down and a lot of other related injuries. I think Kittle is supposed to come back soon, but I don't think in time for this game, and with not the best quarterback, that won't be super helpful to their teams. So I think I'm going to give it to the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm giving it to the Cowboys too. I mean, the Niners are struggling on the offensive side of the ball. And, I think Dallas can do just enough to get this game win.
The next game is the 9-4 Seahawks take on the 6-7 Washington football team. Now, the Washington football team, I started off this year thinking they're an awful team. They don't even have a name. They aren't good. They've started becoming really good, and I don't know if it's Alex Smith or what, but their team is starting to click into kind of a groove of what it's like to actually start winning games. And they're actually looking really great. Like, I watch them play, and it's actually not torture. I enjoy it because they're actually good. That being said, the Seahawks have an amazing offense, but they have an awful defense. Honestly, I didn't think they were going to be able to stop the Jets, but they obviously crushed them, which was good because I didn't want the Jets to win against the Seahawks because I would have been very sad. But I'm still going to give it to the Seahawks, even though they don't have the best defense. I think it will be a pretty close game because the football team can put up a fight and they can put some points up on the board, but still going to give it to Seahawks.
Yeah, this is where our first disagreement is going to be. Not saying the Seahawks are a bad team by any means. I'm giving this one to the Washington football team. They're on a 4-game win streak, and they've been playing hot in these 4 games. They've looked great. I think the only reason why they are where they are is because they messed around that quarterback. They didn't start Alex Smith. They started Dwayne Haskins. Then they put in Kyle Allen, and now they're putting Alex Smith, the veteran. And this team probably could have been a lot better if they just started Alex Smith from the start. The defense, I think, now is the number 1 defense in the NFL, maybe 1 or 2, maybe within Pittsburgh. And so, like you said, the defense of Seattle is absolutely terrible. And I think Alex Smith is going to do just enough to, make sure that they can score enough points. And when it comes to defense versus offense, defense wins games. Defense is going to win championships. And I think this defense can do just enough to force Seattle to make mistakes, to pressure Russell Wilson, and shut him down. And I think has one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. Chase Young's looking like an offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year. Sims is looking really good. They're just forcing offensive line back, making them throw bad mistakes. And I think it's going to continue with an okay offensive line in Russell Wilson. And so I'm giving this one to the Washington football team.
The next game is the 6-7 Bears take on the 6-7 Vikings. Now, I'm honestly going to give it to the Bears. I don't think either team is specifically great. I know the Bears are definitely struggling quarterback-wise because they change who they're starting every single week, it seems like. And they don't honestly have much going for them. But, I mean, I feel like they have the defense that they can stop the Vikings offense. I know Dalvin Cook will give them a little bit of a fight, but I still have more hope in the Bears than the Vikings.
This is tough because on the Vikings side, you got Kirk Cousins, you got Dalvin Cook, and then you got the offensive rookie of the year, in my opinion, in Justin Jefferson. And there's a lot of different guys, but then you also see on the offensive side, on the Bears side, Mitchell Trubisky is actually looking kind of good. He looks pretty good for what he's been doing. And so I'm gonna agree with you on this one. I'm gonna go with the Bears. I just don't trust Minnesota. They're just very inconsistent. But I feel like even if I pick the Bears, they're still gonna lose this game. But I'm gonna go with the Bears on this one.
Yeah, I don't trust Kirk Cousins enough. I don't
Exactly.
think he's a reliable quarterback by any means. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put my trust in the Vikings because it seems like they win games that they shouldn't and they lose games that they should win. So honestly,
Exactly.
It's pretty much a toss-up. The next game is the 6-7 Patriots take on the 8-5 Dolphins. Oh, what a game this is going to be. I'm giving it to the Dolphins. I don't think the Patriots really have a chance. I mean, I know the Patriots, they need wins. They need every single win they can get to even be slightly considered for the playoffs. They're not going to the playoffs at this point by any means. They have like a 4% chance of getting there. But if they win every single game and the Dolphins start losing all their games, we have a chance. But that's not going to happen. The Dolphins are a really great team. They have a pretty decent defense. It gets tested every once in a while. Their offense, on the other hand, is really great. I haven't seen a unified Dolphins offense in a few years. It's been a while since we've seen actually a good Dolphins offense. And I think that really has to do with Tua Tagovailoa. He's an amazing quarterback, and I didn't think he was going to do this well coming into an NFL situation because most NFL rookies, as we've seen, they either really thrive or it takes them a little while to get used to it, which makes sense. The NFL is completely different from college football. But he came in and he started this team like he belonged to be there and he knew what he was doing. And honestly, they can put up way more points than the Patriots can with their suffering offensive line.
Yeah, and they looked really good against Kansas City in the first half. They were, being physical, and that's what you got to do against Kansas City. And then they got, then they let up 28 consecutive points, but then they came back too. So I'm giving this one also to the Dolphins. I think they'll be more physical than New England Patriots. New England Patriots are in desperation mode, but I just don't think they have the weapons on the offensive side of the ball.
And I think with so many of the Patriots defensive members going on the COVID list at the very beginning and deciding to opt out of this season, I think we would have a really great defense and be able to actually stop Tua because Tua, when you pressure him, he will back up a few yards and you will get the sacks off him, but just because he doesn't have the experience of trying to avoid that yet, and that just kind of comes with time in the NFL. So we would genuinely be able to actually put up a fight if we had our defensive members, but instead 10 decided to opt out. The next game is the 1-12 Jaguars take on the 8-5 Ravens. I don't really think the Jaguars stand a chance against the Ravens. The Ravens are a really great team. Obviously, they've lost some games that definitely they shouldn't have, but they're overall a really great team. They love to run the ball, and Lamar Jackson actually can throw. I think we've seen, based off of the Browns game, that he can actually put up some grid passes that we haven't seen this season. Honestly, I always see him running. And he did run it most of the times, but he was able to actually put off some really great passing yards this past game. And the Jaguars don't have the defense to stop that, so I'm still going to give it to the Ravens.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson showed off his arm last Monday. He looked really good, because he's a running quarterback, but he looked pretty good throwing the ball. And they also, New England, LA, a lot of these, Las Vegas, they're all in desperation mode to make the playoffs because there's only 3 teams that can make the wild card. And I think this is I think this is going to be a fun game. I think I like to see Lamar. I love watching him play. I think he's just going to go off on this really trashy Jaguars defense.
The next game is the 8-5 Bucks take on the 4-9 Falcons. This is going to be a good game because both of them have stacked offenses. Just one team actually uses all their weapons and one team doesn't. So that being said, I'm taking the Bucks who actually use their weapons. The Falcons do genuinely have amazing people on their team like we've talked about, but there are so many instances where they just don't use everyone that they have. They have amazing offensive line and their defense is pretty all right. They can stop the other teams, but they've been struggling lately. And this past week, honestly, the Falcons lost the game just because of Matt Ryan. Honestly, he threw an interception at the very end of the game, and it was very sad, but they would have won it if it wasn't for Matt Ryan losing it there. So I think the Falcons are going to be looking for a win here, but I don't think they really stand a chance to the Buccaneers with all their weapons.
Yeah, I'm giving this one to the Buccaneers. They're also in doing playoff mode too. They want to make the playoffs as a wild card. I like, they got a good win against Minnesota last week. Tom Brady's going to be rolling this week against the struggling Falcons.
Yes, and Brady knows what it's like to go into a fighting playoff chances, obviously, with as many years as the Patriots. The next game is the 5-8 Lions take on the 9-4 Titans. While the Lions do have Matthew Stafford, he's still not completely reliable, and I wouldn't trust him, especially going against the Titans who have Derrick Henry and will just run all over you. The Lions defense also, I don't think, is capable of stopping such a great running back. They're overall pretty decent, but I don't think they really stand a chance to Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Sorry about that. I do agree. I like that opinion. And we see Ryan Tannehill's ability to throw the ball. He can still do it, And I think this Titans defense needs to be fixed a little bit, and they could be a legit contender. They could possibly make it back to the championship game. And so I like what this team is doing, and I think they're going to completely steamroll the Lions.
The next game is the 4-9 Texans take on the 9-4 Colts. Now, the Colts have one of the best defenses in the NFL. I think they're third right now behind the Washington football team and the Steelers, but they genuinely do have a really great defense. Their offense has been looking up. Honestly, at the beginning of the season, their offense wasn't the best, but they've gotten better, especially with time. Phillip Rivers is a decent quarterback. He's getting there. Honestly, I think next year he'll be pretty good, but I think Deshaun Watson is a better quarterback, but the Texans don't have anybody on their O-line that they can actually be thrown to that can actually do damage. So I'm going to give it to the Colts.
Yeah, I got to give this one to the Colts as well. And for the reasons you said, they got to, Phillip Rivers is getting old, and like Ben, his arm is getting shot. And same thing, with Deshaun Watson, like you said, he has no weapons to throw to. And with a defense as good as that, it's just going to be tough.
The next game is the 4-8-1 Eagles take on the 7-6 Cardinals. Now, the Eagles last week put in Jalen Hurts instead of Carson Wentz, and that obviously turned out pretty great for them considering they won against the Saints, which is a big deal. It's not some average team. It's the Saints. They were 10-2 before this, which is a huge deal beating them, especially with their stacked offense. Obviously, Drew Brees was out, but they still have been doing great. They've been on a constant win streak, and the Eagles just crushed that. Now, the Cardinals are a really good team, but I've seen them start going downhill, honestly, these past few weeks. Kyler Murray was a really great quarterback, but he started going downhill since his shoulder injury a few weeks back. He's still been playing through it, but I think something is tweaked in his shoulder. Something's wrong because he's not playing with the drive that he had at the beginning of the season, and he was a really great quarterback. I don't know what's been happening. They do have weapons on that team. I'm honestly going to give it to the Eagles, which I usually don't, nor do I like them winning. But Jalen Hurts looks great, and I think he's going to be a really great contender going against the Cardinals.
I didn't expect you to say that, honestly. I'm going to be honest. But I'm going to also agree with you. I think that was a good win by the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think it was that big of a win. When you lose Drew Brees and a piece that's monumental to that, and we've seen it from time to time. We saw it with Ben. We've seen it with Aaron Rodgers. The rest of the team is going to go to shambles. And that's not surprising. That was the first okay team they played in the Eagles, but they played two really bad teams, two really bad defense, which made Taysom Hill look great. And I don't think Taysom Hill is that good of a quarterback, to be honest with you. He's a better, other around guy, but he's not a quarterback, nowhere near Brees. So I think this game was not really, that big of a win for the Eagles. I really do like what I saw from Jalen Hurts. I apologize for Carson Wentz. He's probably going to be out of a job. Come to Pittsburgh maybe, because he's still young.
I don't know about that.
I don't know, probably not. But anyways, besides the
death
facts. But besides the point, I do think the Cardinals are a little bit overrated, and it could have been, it could be the reason that you said in Kyler Murray's injury, because he hasn't, come back the way we've seen. And so I'm giving this one to the Eagles as well. I like the new energy vibe that Jalen Hurts brings to this team, and the Cardinals are just struggling, and I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with this really cool energy vibe in the Eagles.
The next game is the 0-13, so close to being 0-16 Jets, to the 9-4 Rams. The Rams are a great team. They are a team that can rack up points quickly. And if you don't have the right defense, you're not going to stand a chance against the Rams. Obviously, the Jets got steamrolled by the Seahawks, which is a team with absolutely no defense. That really says something. But let alone you're going against the Rams, who have Aaron Donald and an amazing defense and an amazing offense as well. I don't think the Jets stand any of a chance. I think they'll put up a field goal at most, and the Rams are going to win it.
Yeah, there's really not more. You just covered everything for me. I'm taking the Rams on this one.
I think it's just a clear winner. I didn't even need to explain anything, honestly.
You're 0-13 now, so I mean, you might as well just lose the rest of the season.
Honestly, I don't know why they would even try winning a game, because then if it's the 1-15 Jags against the 1-15 Jets, then it's a toss-up. Who's going to get Trevor? At this point, might as well just stick it out. The Patriots would be the ones to break that, though, in Week 16. The next game, which I'm confused as to why it isn't a Sunday night game, is the 12-1 Chiefs take on the 10-3 Saints. We all know this is going to be a way, way better game than the Browns-Giants. Let's just put that out there. Don't know why it's not Sunday night, but it's completely fine. Guess it's not my place, but I'm going to start calling up NFL. I have an issue with that. That being said, the Saints are coming off of their first loss in a while. They were on a pretty steady win streak, especially after losing Drew Brees. Taysom Hill is an all right quarterback. This has really been a test for him. He's been pretty decent since Drew Brees left, but obviously he was tested this week against the Eagles, and this is just going to go for sure as a test of how good he can actually be, and if he can actually lead a team against the best offense in the league, the Super Bowl winning offense with Patrick Mahomes. That being said, the Saints have a pretty decent defense, but it's nowhere near Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is a different level, as we've seen clearly. He did not have his best week this past week, so hopefully he fixes that, especially for my fantasy points-wise. But I'm still going to give it to the Chiefs because I just have way more hope in them than Taysom Hill and the Saints.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into, this game. And I think the number one thing that people haven't realized is, the Chiefs are they're winning games, but they're not winning by that much. Patrick Mahomes played terrible, against the Dolphins. Imagine what's going to happen when you play. I'm not going to say the Steelers anymore. Imagine what's going to happen when you play the Bills, you play the Titans, you play the Browns. This is a vulnerable team. This is not a clear AFC winner, in my opinion. I don't think we can just put the Chiefs as AFC winner. Yes, they're winning games, they're looking good, but they're winning by like one possession games. They're not looking the greatest. And I don't think that's gonna beat them. I think they could easily get better. They got to fix things. Allowing teams to come back at the end of the game. That's a bigger thing. Luckily, they have played the Dolphins and they played some other not so good teams. That's fine. That they can allow them to come back because they're not ascending. But imagine when you play the Bills. What's going to happen when you give the Bills the momentum? We saw that with Pittsburgh. That pick six momentum. That's all they needed, and they took over from there. And so I'm. It's a little worrisome for the Chiefs. I get a little worried to see, what's going to happen when they play a good team. They got the number one seed for now, and I think this is going to be the team. Like this could be the game that they can lose that. If they lose this game, then Pittsburgh obviously will get the number one seed, and I think it's going to stay like that. If they win this game, then obviously I would just hand it to them, and they'd get the number one seed. And I think this game depends really on if Brees plays or not, because I don't think there's an official word on if he's going to play or if he's not going to play. I think no matter what's going to happen, I think if he plays or not plays, I'm going to give this one to the Kansas City Chiefs. I like what they've been doing. I think the offense looks pretty good. They just on defense, they just can't allow teams to come back and play with them.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I think they're getting by on defense, like I've said all season, and they just haven't decided to fix it as much. And I think they genuinely do try, and then I think they underestimate how good their competitor is going to be. And obviously, you don't need to blow out teams. I mean, we've seen that with the Steelers. I mean, all the Steelers wins haven't been a blowout this season, and they've been getting it by. But I mean, it's not what you want from a great offense like that. And for Drew Brees' sake, I don't think he is playing this week. I think he's been ruled out until the playoffs, I think, if I'm not wrong. But even if he's not, I still want to put him in this week. It's such a bad injury that could easily be re-injured, especially as a quarterback. If you get sacked, that's just going to be the end. Like, that's going to be a re-injury right there. So they have to be very careful when they want to start playing him. The Sunday night game, for some odd reason, is the 9-4 Browns take on the 5-8 Giants. I don't really have much to say about this game. Honestly, the Giants are in the competition against the Washington football team for their best in their division. I don't think they stand up to the Browns. Obviously, the Browns just had a major game against the Ravens, and they looked amazing. They are a really great team, and they can put up points on the board. I think that they will win this game over the Giants.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think, the Giants looking good. They've gotten a lot better, but I think the Browns, they just need this win, and they've looked great, in the past couple of games. That play action pass by Baker, after Odell going down, it's a different story from Pittsburgh. From Cleveland. So I like the Browns, what they've been doing. The defense looks a lot better. I like what Kevin Stefanski's doing as he's the coach. So I'm giving this one I'm giving the Browns the win on this one. Going back to Drew Brees, though, I just saw that he hasn't officially been ruled out yet. Today during practice, the main part is he's gonna throw for the first time today. If he can throw without practice, then he's gonna be fine. If he throws without pain today, he will continue to play or be on the list to play. Obviously he could still be ruled out, but he'll make that pass round one. If he has pain today, they'll automatically rule him out. So he's still in the chance to play this weekend.
That'll be interesting. And it's also going to be a matter of fact is he's a really great quarterback, but if he can bounce back that fast is going to be the really interesting thing if he does actually play on Sunday.
Yes, definitely.
The last game of the week is the Monday night game. The 11-2 Steelers take on the 2-10-1 Bengals. Calm down. The Steelers haven't looked the best. We're going to be honest. They've lost 2 consecutive games, which is not good for a team that was undefeated. That being said, they still have way more talent than the Bengals. The Bengals, I don't really have much good to say at all about them. I mean, I was saying that they had Joe Burrow, but now they don't even have that. So, honestly, the Steelers do have a lot of things to fix that they need to continue to fix, especially going into playoffs. I think this will be a win for them, but still worrisome about their whole situation on offense and defense because they don't have a run offense.
Yeah, and you talk about this Pittsburgh Steelers team. You split this team up between the hard part of their schedule and the easy part. They've had 11 games or 12 games, depending on how you count Washington, of pretty easy teams. Obviously Tennessee was tough and Baltimore was tough, but those were the easy teams that they played. Houston, Philly, the Giants, Jacksonville. Those were easy teams, and Pittsburgh was able to get 11-0. And now you're playing the hard part of the schedule. You had Buffalo, you had Washington, you have Indianapolis, and you have Cleveland. This obviously is a fluke game. And in those games, you're not playing with all of your defensive starters because the defensive starters are dropping like flies. So, quite frankly, they're not going to look the best. Not saying like of any sort of excuse, because I do think Pittsburgh Steelers have to get better on offense. We need to stop dropping the ball. You got to have a run game. We ran for 21 yards, I think, maybe a little bit more than 21 yards, the entire game against Buffalo. And Buffalo is the second worst run defense in the NFL. And you can consider the short passing game is technically now your run game. We're not using Claypool enough. There's so many different factors that Pittsburgh needs to fix. And so another thing is that they played what, 3 games in the past 17 days? Like, that's also insane. And that's the thing you saw when you watch the Redskins game, the football team game, and you watch the Bills game. Both the Steelers jumped out to an early lead in both of those games, and then they let it up. And at the end of both of those games, you could see they were gassed. They were absolutely gassed. And players are dropping like flies with injuries. 2 more guys went on the injured reserve list. I don't know what's going to happen with them. And so it's basically, luckily they get a little bit more time, 1 extra day to practice and, rest. So I do think Pittsburgh could possibly win this game. The way they're playing, anything's really possible. And so I really think, Pittsburgh could possibly start also thinking about resting their starters for their next couple of games. Obviously, you got 2 really tough games, Indianapolis and Cleveland in the next couple of games. But if you win this game, you win the division, right? You win that division. And so now it's just pretty much you automatically play a home game, and it's pretty much how much do you value that 1 seed? You know, do you want to play that 1 seed? Do you want to, take a chance of that 1 seed? Because it's pretty much health over the 1 seed. That's pretty much what it is. And I think Pittsburgh has to realize what do you want to do, at that point. And so there's going to be like the 1 seed is no home field advantage because there's going to be no people in the playoffs supporting. So, the home field advantage is virtually getting taken out. But I do think Pittsburgh needs to get a lot better on both sides of the ball. And I think it's a good opportunity for them to do that this week against Cincy. But like I said, it's the NFL. Anything can happen.
Millan, we have officially finished our Week 15 predictions. Who do you think is your lock?
I was looking at this, and I'm going to go with the Titans over the Lions. I think Brian Tannehill, I think they got the lock. They got my lock of the week.
I was going to say the Rams, but then I realized they're playing the Jets, so I was like, okay, that's probably too easy. I'll take an easy one, but not as easy. I'm going to take the Bills over the Broncos. I feel like that's respectable. Broncos can put up some points. The Bills are a very good team, though. And thank you so much for joining us on Week 15. Join us right back here as we finish up regular season next week and then move into playoffs.